Right, let's do this. Right, if you don't know already, I'm building an F40 dashboard or dash cluster for my sim game setup. So it's got the analog gauges, the speedos, the tacho, boost pressure and water temperature. And as part of that, obviously I need to make a boost pressure gauge. So the good thing about that, if you're following along and you're not fully invested in the whole sort of gauge cluster, we can build this one little gauge by itself and it's a boost gauge. Now typically if you're going to buy a boost gauge from a speed shop, it's going to run off the vacuum off the manifold of the motor, which is hard to reproduce on a computer, right? So this one is going to be something you probably can't really buy anyway. And at the end of the video I'll be sharing a link to all the files which you can have for free, the STLs and all the code that I'll be talking about in this particular video. So let's get on with it. For this gauge I have a few design restraints. I've got a little hole to go through and I've got to try and keep it all sort of compact so it doesn't blow out in size. So here's what I've come up with. We've got just the one tube there which holds all the components together with the glass or acrylic front. We've got the acrylic dial. So in my last video, or maybe the video before, I made the dial by spray painting some paint onto acrylic and then blasting out the text with the laser and then painting on top of that to give it the sort of full dial effect. What I found with that was, well, the problem with that is because if you put it together a lot, like I have been just testing, the paint chips off because it's quite brittle. So what I've found the best thing to do is blast all the paint off and then put on like a vinyl on the back of it, and it's protected. It's almost the perfect solution because the front's obviously protected by the acrylic and the back is protected by the vinyl. That's what I've done. Behind there we've got just a spacer for our neopixels. Now I could just use one white LED to light it up, right, but with the neopixels it's just so much tighter with the wiring, and then I can pick any color I want for the back color, and if I want an individual LED to be a different color, which you'll see for the big gauges, it's perfect, right? Then we've got our motors, which we discovered in the last video as well, or the video before. They're out of just a regular car, and just brackets and a driver board. So you're going to have to run a driver board. There's no way around it. You can't plug these motors directly into the Pico, it'll burn it out. So if you get this driver board, it's $1, maybe $1.50 worst, and you just hook it up. So this is all in one sealed contained unit, and you just plug it in and you're good to go. Again, all these designs and everything will be available at the end of the video. So going back to those neopixels, in the download with all the files, there'll be 2 or 3 different files. One will be testing the neopixels so you know it's hooked up correctly, the other will be driving the motor, and the other one will be one that we're going to connect up to SimHub to make the actual movement of the boost pressure. But to start with, we'll just test the neopixels with this really short script. We just tell it how many LEDs we've got and how bright we want it, and then we can type in a number in the keyboard and it turns on those individual LEDs. So let's get it running. So you can see on the screen I've got the boost gauge I've built there down on the bottom right, and on the top left I've got the console, and if I type in the number for the particular LED I'm working with, it should turn on. So if I type in 1 turns on, 2 turns on, 4 turns on, 3 turns on, 5. So I can turn them all on individually. So as a test for us, we can now tell that the LEDs or neopixels in the unit are working. The other test code I've got, which is really handy, is the one to test the motor movement. So we'll just upload that to the Pico and see what happens. So with this code, if I type in a number, it'll be the steps that it'll move. So I put in 50, it should move the motor 50 steps. Let's give it a go. And we can see the motor's moved 50 steps. It's a small gauge, so we don't have too much movement. So I think the maximum I can move between 0 and 1.5 bar is about 250. So I put in 200 now. It should go all the way over to the far right. So there it is, it's maxed out. So I put in minus 250. It's back to 0 again. So we know that the Arduino needs to map 250 steps to 1.5 bar. Now we've got all these details, we know our LEDs are working, we know our motor's turning. We've just got to configure SimHub to give us that boost pressure so the gauge will move in relation to how much boost pressure is coming in. So this last script that will be available in the download will be this one called boost only. So we're only measuring boost with this one file. We'll just have a quickly look at the file just to make so it makes a bit of sense. On the top we define the pin numbers, so for all these test scripts it's using pins 10 to 13 on the Pi Pico to drive the motor. Further down we've got the max steps. We'll work those out to 250, the maximum steps it can move before it gets out of range, and the maximum value coming from SimHub is going to be 1.5 bar. Further down here we've got somewhere we can set the colour. Because it's RGBs, obviously we can set any colour we want. We could probably put in an RGB value if you want, but we've just got the default red, green, purple, orange colours there if you want to type those in. So you just replace whatever values in here with one of the possibilities across the top, and the backlight colour will be fine. The other options this will do, or the other things this will do, will be when it boots up it'll go full gauge or full travel on the dial, because if you're playing the game and you lose power, the dial will probably stuck at the top. We don't want it to be at a 0 point, so as part of the initialization the motor will go all the way to one extreme back to 0 again, just to make sure it starts at 0 the whole time. And the backlight will light up the colour we've chosen. I've chosen green here, so let's just start the device up and see what happens. So it's done its full initialization. The needle's going from 0 to 1.5 bar and back again, and the backlight is green. Now we've got all these things sort of sorted out. We're just going to start our game up and see if the needle will move compared to the amount of boost pressure going in. But before we do that, we've got to configure SimHub first to give us that boost pressure value. Now if we go into, if you watched our last video you will know all about this. We've got a custom serial devices, and on the right here we can go into edit. And I've just added, for those other videos I've added speed and RPMs, and I've just added an extra variable called game data turbo. It could be different for different games, but for this particular game the data coming out is game raw data turbo. And then on the bottom right you can see the raw result is 0 because the game isn't running. So once we start the game we should see those numbers going up and down. Okay, so we've got a game up and running here. This car has got a boost gauge, which not all cars have in this game, but this one has, so it's good, that's what we need. And over on the right here we can see the revs or the idle. The boost is 0 because the motor needs to be accelerating or revving to create boost. It can't just make boost at nothing. And then obviously the speed is also 0. So we'll just put it into gear and go for a drive and see if our boost gauge reacts to the value coming out of SimHub. Okay, great success, it works. You probably noticed it was a bit laggy when it compared to what was on the screen. I'm not sure why that is. There's probably a few factors. One thing is my laptop, it's not the gruntiest. It doesn't like that game. It doesn't like recording the screen at the same time. All these different factors. SimHub could be slow. Maybe the Pico's not keeping up. I'm not too sure, but I have noticed when I don't have all these other things running at the same time, everything seems to work fine. But we need a bit of fine tuning for the final product. So you can watch the hero video, which will be coming up for the whole thing. Hopefully I've got all those issues ironed out. So definitely check that link in the show notes if you want to download the files to make your own gauge. If you're already a Patreon member for free, you don't have to pay. You can get those files straight away. If you're not, just click on my Patreon and join as a free member. You'll never be charged. And you'll not only get these files, but a whole lot of other files as well, free STLs, which aren't available anywhere else, which I've made in the past. So aside from that, thanks for watching.